Professor Kibwana, the people will say, you promised to do ABCD, what happened? So we'll start with that question. Then the next question that I see from here is the whole question of payment. Some people saying, well, it costs my time to go and sit there and give my views. That sounds very interesting to me. And in fact, the deputy governor from Marsabit said there is no way you cannot give money. So I would like to hear some of the thoughts up here about that whole thing. And then Governor Nyagarama saying that at the end of the day, let the people talk, say whatever they want, but then get some people who really know what they are doing and let them come up with a final decision. So let me start with you, Professor Kibwana, about this whole idea of reconciling your political pledges, because you make some pledges when you're campaigning, and then what finally happens when that pledge has been moderated, if you like, by the views of the public.
Yes. Okay. Maybe also allow me to say something a little about civic education, because in my other life, I used to do that. I think the point
Kenya Twitter Kaya.
Yes. The point that was made by Governor Otichilo, that civic education is very central, but it has to be not just a technical language, but it has to be a language that the people understand and appreciate and will converse in. And that is why the use of local languages is very important, so that you have everybody at the same level. And in Makueni, we tried to have a radio station. I don't know how you were successful, and we couldn't get a license. So maybe I'll come to you and you'll tell me how you got one from the national government. Because also a radio where local languages or Kiswahili, where those languages are used, will help a lot. And even before the national government, when the constitution came into being, there was a lot of civic education through the ministry of the then Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, and that came from the top up to the districts. And I think that is something that maybe the national government also wants to revisit in consultation with the county governments. I think in terms of also the question that Governor Mutai asked, apart from the general public participation that we do, because it's a constitutional right and you must reach everybody, we have targeted public participation. We get children literally, those who are in primary school, the small ones, they come to tell us what kind of county do they want, what are the things that they want. And sometimes they do that through music, through song. You know, they will sing, and through that song, you will know some of the things that are important for them. So it also depends on what forms you use so that you can get the views of the people. Then the youth say that they want to tell you on their own. They want to discuss on their own. The women the same. Persons with disability, persons living with HIV/AIDS. People in the markets, those who are committees of the trading centers, so that it is the professionals. In actual fact, in Makueni, the professionals have their own organizations at the county level and at sub-county levels. And they will come and also tell you the things that must happen. And these days they're coming home, not only to invest, but to be able to make decisions and tell their relatives and so on what are important decisions that should be made also for the counties. For Marsabit, the specific question that you asked, when you have to get people to come to, for example, from every sub-county to the center, you'll be responsible for their, like if it's bus fare. If now you're operating at that level and they have to pay like 5,000 shillings in some instances to come to the center, if that's where you want now to congregate everybody after having had village, sub-ward, ward, all that kind of level. That is different. It's not paying them, but it is facilitating their transport so that they can now come at that level. And I have no problem with that. What I have a problem with is if you give them money to come and say what is good for them, they will not say what is good for them. They will now decide what is good, what does the governor want? That's what we shall tell the governor, because he has bought our presence at that meeting. And that is where we actually encourage them, even to, when we are coming now to the higher levels, we encourage them to send their representatives, because they have elected people who represent them from the citizenry. So that, they will send people, and they will be, responsible for getting those people to come now at that level.
But just so we get to this specific question, Professor Kibwana, do you find yourself sort of moderating that whole process in a way to sort of legitimize the promise that you made to the people that I want to do ABCD, but you want to get some sort of backing from the people, almost like a rubber stamp, or do you let this thing flow and take whatever direction it will take? I think that is the dilemma that, that I was raising.
First of all, after we came into government, we had a vision, the equivalent of Vision 2030. We have a Vision 2025. And there was a process of the people now saying that this is what we want for 10 years in Makueni. And it started from the village with all those sectors that I've described, so that it was no longer the manifesto of Adelina and Kibwana. It was now their manifesto. So that now when they say, what is it that is being done through even CIDP, through ADP, it is what they have said they want to see in Makueni in 10 years. So that now we don't have to justify ourselves and say that there was a Muungano initially.
Okay. Thank you, Professor King. Let me come to you. When you listen to all this about the politics of what the governor promised and what the people actually want, because it's not always the same thing, how do you go around that, just based on your perspectives and insights into the whole situation here in Kenya?
Well, I return to, I think there's common cause that who are the citizens of Kenya, and to get their input onto any proposed regulation that's going to be passed either at county or at national level. The what is their participation, which really is input of their needs, interests and expectations. The real discussion and the input that's been given this morning is on how. How do you implement this? And I think, and I'm blue skying here, that it should be done at national level, so that there is a national regulation that actually turns this thing on its head, or has a paradigm shift, as was suggested. And how do you turn it on its head? To overcome all the problems of long distances and needing food and water and tradition and all the issues which have been raised, and wanting monetary compensation. Change it by way of regulation, that the political leader must ensure that he or she consults with the material stakeholders to get their input on their needs, interests and expectations, and do a cost-benefit analysis of the long-term better interests of the citizens of Kenya. So you actually turn it on its head. And how do you do that? In order to get that communication, you use technology. I agree that there are vast areas. Africa is a vast continent, and each country has vast areas. But with modern technology, you can actually, if you have that duty to consult, you can consult with people in every corner of the county or the country. So I think the question of how, the regulations of how, is a matter for serious discussion. And you need regulation so that people know how it can be implemented. And then once citizens know that, they can find out how they participate through leaders approaching them. So I would say the critical issue is serious discussion on how it is implemented.
Thank you very much. Bwana P.S., I'm getting back to this civic education. I was giving you time to cool off a little bit, because every other person was talking about civic education and the role that the national government ought to play. So you said you're playing some role, you're already doing it, but some of the governors here clearly are not feeling it.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me respond to the concerns which are actually pertinent, which have been raised by the governors and the deputy governors from the respective counties. One, what we have done as a ministry is to develop guidelines for public participation. So I do agree with the Deputy Governor, Nandi. Initially, we didn't have these structures in place, but we have developed guidelines. Number two, we have developed a curricula for civic education. So what we have done is we are planning to roll out, starting from the governors, to sensitize governors on this in conjunction with the COG. So this one will be rolling out very soon. And then to enhance this, the national government, last week, we sent a grant to all the 47 counties. We did send a grant of 2.1 billion to all the counties for civic education and capacity building, especially on Kenya Devolution Support Program. So we did send that 2.1 billion, which will help the counties to undertake this exercise. If you are not aware, maybe you can come for details, but already their money is in your accounts.
Clearly you will.
So,
you will.
I'm talking confidently, it was already released. So, you check in your accounts, maybe you are receiving a lot of money that you cannot even realize.
Clearly you will need to do some civic
amount.
education here when the session
I just
ends.
wanted to inform
we can have a session with the governors.
steps we are making to ensure that this one reaches every corner of this country. And every county, I have the statistics and the amount of money that each of the counties is receiving. And I will share with you. Just give me your cards, emails, and then I'll send you the amounts that have been sent to your counties. We will be launching it officially next week or the other week, just a ceremonial launch, but the money is already in your accounts. So that you can use this money to capacity build your citizens, our citizens. We will be working also very closely with you people, because in a ministry we are lean. We don't have such kind of a high number of staff to ensure that we go all over. So we will be depending on you people and other stakeholders who are interested, the development partners who are interested in helping to undertake this kind of exercise. Also, there was a question concerning the national government. Maybe when a chiefs or the national administration calls for a barasa, they attend. You see, things go slowly. Like the national administration has been there for long, but we will, as the counties also, we will be there. This devolution is a new thing. So I am anticipating and I'm very optimistic that we will get there. And the kind of animosity that was there between the misunderstanding that was between the national and the county government, I think now I'm very happy for the kind of relationship we are having between the national and the county government at the moment. Last week, we did have an IBEC meeting, and the national government and the county government were able to agree for the first time on the amount of money that is going to the counties. We agree that we are having 368 billion going to the counties without any, and this is what will be taken to Parliament. And I am expecting this cordial relationship will be there. So, because I've seen what is happening. So the kind of governance which we are having, not that I'm saying the other crop was different, but I think we are maturing. Yeah? That kind of suspicion which was there between the national and the county government is no longer there. So we are going to deliver as one nation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm sure the governors will be making a lot of calls during the lunch break about the status of their accounts as this one continues. Yeah, but thank you, Bwana PS. So Henry, I come to you about these public expectations. I think that we are getting somewhere with this whole possibility that the public can actually connect what they are doing with their well-being, but there is still the idea of opportunity cost, that I should have been doing something else when I came for this, someone has got to pay for this. Do you think that's a reasonable position to take, or what is Kara doing with all the networks that it has to bring the understanding that actually this is for the benefit of the members of the public themselves, that the long-term benefits might even be better than the 200, 500 shillings?
Yeah, I think this again boils back to the issue of civic education. And I can see there's a sense of a bit of back and forth between the national government and the county government on who is supposed to really do it. But if you look at the Constitution, I think Schedule 4, Part 2, function number 14, the county government is supposed to actually facilitate public participation and ensure that it's happening. And if you go further and look at, I think, Section 91 of the County Government Act, it provides mechanisms or provisions of how the county government is supposed to put in place mechanisms for public participation. So then what we would expect is to see, even in the budget process of the county government, allocations to civic education and public participation, so that it is something we're not just talking about, but something we are making deliberate steps to make sure that it happens. So I think it's important that we really get to a point where we don't see this as somebody else's function, but as a function that is very important to the citizenry. Again, on the citizens feeling that they really don't think it's important, the same thing I said earlier is just demonstrating value for their time, or demonstrating that whatever kind of issues they're putting forth are actually issues that will find importance at the final decision-making table, so that I can feel the motivation. But again, I can also be able to make the connection between what I'm doing and what impact it has on my life and my welfare. So we need to do a little bit more of education, but we also need to create those kind of structures that enable the public to participate. I also wanted to just point out something. You know, we seem to be limiting the issue of public participation to citizen forum or forums where people talk about issues. But if you look at even the laws that we have, for instance, the Urban Areas and Cities Act, it provides for establishment of city boards and municipality boards. And the representation of the members of those boards actually is very elaborate in terms of the citizen representation, including neighborhood associations, private sector, informal sectors. That in itself is an avenue for public participation. Because the moment, for instance, somebody from the resident association is represented in the board, then he's championing the interest of the people who he's representing. So we should not look at public participation just a matter of going to the public to talk about issues, but even involving representative of citizens, even in the committees. For instance, the planning approval committee, planning technical committees. I don't see why it will be difficult to say that we are going to have a representative of the citizen, of the public in these committees, so that issues can be discussed at that particular level. So this needs to be broadened up so that we take it beyond just convening forums and people talking about public participation. Lastly, we have the provision that the county government is supposed to facilitate establishment of the citizens forum at the county government level. And it is prescribed very well how it's supposed to happen, what's supposed to be done. So what I'm trying to say in short is that can we start by implementing the little laws that we have to ensure that we are driving the public participation agenda? And can we ensure that whatever we can do with what we have is done? I don't know which governor or which county government has ever taken the initiative to make an annual report to the county assembly on the status of public participation, because Section 92 of the County Government Act actually requires that. So these are things you don't need even regulations. These are things that can be done even at the way they are. So the bottom line is, let's have the intention, let's have the motivation to embrace public participation and make sure that we are implementing what needs to be implemented, and where there are some shortfalls, then we can be able to cure through the regulations we're talking about.
Thank you, Henry. So, some great points there. Rachael, when I come to you, because now we want to get a few thoughts from members of the general audience here. Professor King made an interesting point earlier on about there being the right for public participation and public participation actually happening meaningfully. In your dialogue with both levels of government, do you get a sense this is getting embedded, or are we just doing this, as one of the governors said, some PR exercise that ticks a box?
Okay, thank you so much. And I'd like to reference something that Justice King said yesterday. He referred to the changing perception where we're now looking in corporate governance at the enlightened shareholder. If you take that principle of corporate governance and bring it into public participation in the public sector, we are looking at the citizen as an enlightened citizen, as a person who has some input, some experience, and something valuable to bring. So if we look at that and we recognize that our general population has various strata, different people who can, so that we need to have that approach that looks at our citizen as someone who actually has something valuable to give into this process. Having determined that that's our starting point, then we look at how do we find, what he talked about stakeholders, looking at the example that Governor Kingi gave us of engaging those for whom you expect that they are affected by these proposals that you're making. And looking at the fact that we're not just going to say people didn't show up or they came and didn't have relevant points, but saying how do I ensure that my engagement ensures that the people that I engage with are likely to give me valuable input and valuable feedback. So I think it's just talking about the fact that, one, it's a requirement. So the fact that it's in the Constitution means that we have to keep struggling with this animal until we make it work. So it's not optional. But two, saying that there might be many constraints, but we do see examples where it's working. We've seen, starting at the village level, the example that were given by the Deputy Governor of Makueni, which largely factors in the issue of cost. We also need to continue to focus on what can technology do for us. We know that there are very simple methods that are online, free platforms that are available for civic engagement. And if you talk about trying to bring home investment, trying to bring the diaspora, trying to get them invested, trying to bring the private sector, to be honest, invested in what is happening at the county level, then we need to use all the platforms available that will make it easy and also quite fast for us to be able to get their feedback. So I think that this is something that definitely it will continue to be an important part of what we do, but it's possible to succeed.
So could you get some questions now from the general audience, and please direct it to a specific person if you like, so that we have it more targeted. There are quite a number of hands back there. If someone can just help. Oh, so the lady there has the mic. Yes, please. And make it one question and make it brief. Thank you.
My name is Dr. Reginald Dawanyonyi, Director Kenyans and a former woman representative, Bungoma County. My question is this. When we talk of public participation, we want leaders to be open enough and discuss this issue thoroughly. In terms of legislation at county level and at national level, how do you ensure that the two-edged sword which you have, because you use the same public to win votes. Now once you have won votes, you want the same public to turn around and be managed by the initial manipulation of the same voters. How do you be bold enough to come out with laws and policies that can inform the public that there's no money you are going to give out, and yet that public must give a vote, whether you give out money or not, and come up like that and agree, no money giving out, and let the vote come as they are, because that's the true reflection of what now those people are. After that, then you can actually follow up steps that are meaningful for development. That is the question I'm asking, but as I wind up, I want to thank Professor Kivutha Kibwana and many other governors who have taken women as their deputies.
Okay, thank
that
you.
That is the way to go.
Thank you very much. Yeah, let's get a comment, a question from this place. Make it brief again.
Yes, my name is Rose Osoro, former commissioner with the Commission on Revenue Allocation, and I want to add my voice in this topic of public participation. Let me just give an answer why people attend the Chief's Baraza and not the public participation for other government officials. It's very simple. the chief comes from his wife's house walking to the venue. Us who are coming from the county headquarters come with four-wheel drive cars, bottled water, and of course we also know who cooks the best meat. So Wamboi today is going to cook meat, and she has retrieved a receipt book, which is special because the way it's supposed to be written is not the normal way. And you are preparing for public participation. So essentially, I understand that the money that you're using is my money as a citizen. And you want me to come in, sit, yawn, and go while you eat, and I know in your pocket you have got per diem, you've got lunch, you've got everything with your four-wheel drives. We need to change. We must do what Professor Kibwana does, goes and sits on a stone together with the elders so that you can be able to get that public participation. It will never come with the approach that we actually have. Technology will also never work. We all have websites as county government, but go and check the hits of the many documents that have been put there. Even the one who uploaded that document has not even gone to check how that document looks, because there's not even a single hit on that document. But they've already ticked. We have already uploaded on the website. So public participation must come from the heart. We must be willing, more than willing, to actually reach out and get the feedback, not a way of enriching ourselves. Look at the budgets of county governments in terms of public participation and tell me where that money goes, into people's pockets. It's the best way for us to get that money. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, this side first, then we'll come
Good afternoon. My name is Ali Hussein. I am here wearing two caps. I am a director at Longhorn Publishers, and I'm also a trustee of the Kenya ICT Action Network. First, I'm happy to see my governor there, Wanakingi, Salamkadze. Now, mine is to really talk about public participation when it comes to policy, at the policy level. I'm happy to see KEPSA there, but we want to see more engagement with very different stakeholders, especially when it comes to ICT. Kenya is a Silicon Savannah today, but we are seeing a trend now where quite a bit of ICT policy engagement is left specifically to the national government. We want to see engagement at the county levels. We want to see engagement with the parliamentarians, with the Senate. It is critical that going forward, that the Kenyan citizen is really engaged. I mean, I want to give an example of what's currently going right and at the same time going wrong. The e-citizen portal. Kenya is probably among the first Kenyan countries, the first African countries to get the G2C conversation when it comes to connectivity and internet right. So when I say G2C, I mean government to citizen, or C2G, citizen to government. But you have a situation where we've thought about the big things, but we've forgotten the small things. If you go to the counties today, or even right now, try and access the citizen portal. Anyone who's a lawyer who works with their customer, just try and access the e-citizen portal today, and you'll see what I mean. Sometimes it's more painful than going to a dentist. User experience is a critical conversation to start having, to start informing our citizens what is the correct way and what is the easiest way to actually access government information. It is our right. It is enshrined.
Okay. I think your point is made.
Noted.
User experience.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, so that we can get a comment from here. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Jacqueline Manani, wearing two hats as well. Vice Chair of Micro Enterprise Support Program Trust and Director at Public Service Commission. I have not heard anyone speaking about the national public participation policy that is currently being developed by the Office of the Attorney General. In December, there was a stakeholder forum, and clearly it looks like that stakeholder participation is not effective because nobody has mentioned it in this room. But I'm thinking then that we need a national public participation legislation that covers the entire country so that we do not have different counties doing different things, national government doing a different thing, so that you have success stories in one county and complete failure stories in other counties. Governor Kivutha, Kibwana, well done. And I'm thinking that now that I have made it known that we have a national public participation policy that is being developed, perhaps the county governments need to reach out if they have not been approached on the issue so that they give their input in terms of what they think should be in that policy, because that policy is going to inform legislation. So I think it's very important. And particularly, I think Governor Kibwana, perhaps it would be nice for you to give your input in terms of enriching that document, especially considering you're also a lawyer. So your experience both on the ground as a governor implementing that public participation and your experience as a law professor would be very good in terms of enriching that document. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think that we have to get some responses here because we have very little time left. Professor Kibwana, do you want to start? Because there is a whole range of things about you sitting on a rock with the elders. Do you think that's the way to go? We should stop all the SUVs and the big cars and I don't know the name of the lady who makes the good chapati and meat, but is that a factor in your view? And please make it brief.
Okay. I think it's sometimes it's what makes what's comfortable for people, because you can't also, it's not acting. You have to feel that you want to do certain things. And I mean, there are many ways of doing public participation, including even social media and so on. So it's really what you feel comfortable with. The question of the boards, like the cities and urban boards getting representation there, it's the same as the county budget and economic fora, the same as county policing authorities, because there you have certain citizens who must be in those boards, although the policing authority is yet to materialize. I think when we collect these views and we converse with our people, then it's important that there's a report back mechanism so that you can demonstrate whatever it is that they suggested, how has it seen the light of day. And for us, you know, that becomes important. And it's not just a question of even reporting to the county assembly. We report first to the people so that they're able to see what is the value of their public participation. And it is on the basis of Article 1 of the Constitution, it's on the basis of the County Government Act, which we have used to have those fora from the village up to the county level of citizens, with also participation of several sectors. I think at the end of the day, just as we were told, as I conclude, at the end of the day, just as we were told about companies, they have intensive public participation because it will reflect on the profit. So that's what they're focusing on. And I think also for the counties, it is, why are you having this? What do you hope will be achieved at the end? Because unless people see profit in this public participation, they will want money, they will not take it seriously. I think there can be no devolution without public participation, and there can be no public participation without civic education.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you very much, Professor Kibwana. We will be getting closing thoughts now from everyone up here because our time is almost done. And we'll start with you, Rachael, some clever thoughts from the world of the private sector.
I think just the private sector is very interested in working with the counties. KEPSA is currently in the process of drafting its Simba Era strategy, which will take us through the next 15 years. And we've had some initial talks with the Council of Governors and some of the city governors. And what we'd like to do is to see the same way that we have succeeded in the last 15 years in public participation, in supporting the processes that are happening at the community and looking at how we can ensure that business is thriving, because if you have a thriving business community, then you do have a thriving economy in your county. So looking at how we can be able to be of assistance and how we can be able to bring together the thinking and the support of the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. So we're looking forward to that.
All right, thank you very much. Henry, your closing thoughts.
Thank you, Joe. I think what I would want to say is that it's time we started looking at public participation as a relationship between the government and the citizens, and made deliberate steps to make sure that we have a framework and structures for that relationship to thrive. And just from the point of view of KARA, for instance, the Kenya Alliance of Resident Association, is we have worked with some counties to establish specific legislation or acts of county assembly for engagement between the county government and the resident associations. Because this is supposed to be a process that is beneficial to both sides, and it's supposed to be a relationship that is adding value, both to the county government and the citizens. So I think moving forward, we have the legislation about public participation. It's important that we implement them, but it's also important that we look at what works for us at the county level. What can we be able to put in place to ensure that we are embracing or we are enhancing the whole concept about public participation? If it means coming up with legislation like the ones I've mentioned, I think that can work for counties that are able to do that. But the bottom line is we have to embrace public participation, and we have to implement it, not because the law wants us to implement it, but because it is good for governance, it is good for our county, and it is good for everybody at the county level and nationally. Thank you.
Thank you very much. PS Powon, please.
Thank you so much. The Kenyan citizens have the right to participate in whatever undertaking that is being done, be it by the national and the county government. So I'm calling upon each one of us who is seated here, the national government, the county governments, the other development partners who are here. Let's team up together and ensure that our people, Kenyan citizens, are sensitized on this. So it needs all our efforts. Thank you.
All right. Justice King, I'll give you the last word. Professor Kibwana, I think you said enough in the last session. So Justice King, please take this home.
Well, I come back to the issue of how it's implemented. On a blue sky situation idea, I believe it should be done at national level, the regulation. And I think the thing has to be stood on its head, so that the political leader of a county, let's say, who wants to pass a regulation, must consult with the material stakeholders that are going to be impacted by this regulation. The regulation can define materiality. How they do it, there should be included that it can be done through the use of technology, either teleconferencing or video conferencing. The question of difficulties of achieving it, as one speaker from the audience said, is a technical issue which I think can be handled. Whether we like it or not, we are in the digital age and it should be used. So I think it's a question of regulation as to how to implement it, because everything else is in place.
Thank you very much, Justice King. We have been having a conversation here for the last 2 hours, basically trying to place public participation in our governance in all sectors, and more specifically in this session we're looking at the county governments. Has it worked? Has it not worked? What's working? What's not working? And at the end of the day, it does appear that as long as the citizens understand what is at stake for them, then there's likelihood of having greater participation in all the initiatives related to making the people's voices count. Thank you very much for joining us. A big thank you to our panel up here and the wonderful audience. Why don't you just clap for the panel here and for yourselves.